Hey everyone, this is Crazyhouse here, and I'm finally going to give my review of Masters of the Universe Revelations. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and I'm going to break this up a little bit. It might take some time, so this might be a little bit longer than the videos that you're used to on this channel, but I wanted to make sure I talk about it as thoroughly as I can, so that way I don't have to go back and do another video about it, because just my feeling of this show is not that important. I think it'll be a blip in history as far as the mythos and the continuation of He-Man and Masters of the Universe, because I don't think the overall mainline fandom of it are going to like it. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about my history and, my fandom of the show first. Then I will talk about my knowledge of the show as far as the behind the scenes and the creation of it and the psychology that went behind it. Then I will talk about the quality of this new show, this new Masters of the Universe Revelation, and then I'll give you my basic review of the actual episodes that I watched. Then I'll answer some of the critiques that have been given to this new series, and then I'll just give you my overall impression by the end. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, folks. Stick around if you'd like. Before I do that, just let me give my plug for my online store, which I do have a sale going on there right now. Crazyhouse comic books, coloring books, and posters are on sale at my online store. So get in while you fit in. The sale ends on August the 5th, I believe. So make sure you get there and get the low prices now while you can. Thank you for those who have purchased items during the sale so far. I appreciate you all. Also, if you want to support this channel, you can become a Patreon of Crazyhouse. 3 tiers on my Patreon: $5, $8, and $10, and they all have different things that you can get as rewards for becoming a Patreon of Crazyhouse. Anyone you choose, I will appreciate, and like I said, it goes towards helping myself with creating my own content, as well as helping out this YouTube channel. So let's move on to Masters of the Universe. First of all, I'll just say my fandom runs deep. I'm a child of the 80s, so I was a big fan of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, just the toys as well as the cartoon. I remember very vividly having many of the original figures. I had Castle Grayskull. I had a bunch of the vehicles that went along with both the heroes and the villains. What I liked about Masters of the Universe back then, it was very unique as far as the action figure designs. I mean, you have these big, bulky, cock diesel characters, like all of them looked like they had been in the gym. You know what I'm saying? They weren't small at all, like a lot of other action figures. These characters were way different. All these characters were lifting, you know what I'm saying? So for a young male, this was definitely an action figure set to behold. And they were tough, sturdy figures too. They weren't flimsy at all. You could do a lot to these figures, and if you were a little boy back in the 80s, you did do a lot with these figures. I played with them outside, inside, in the car when I'd be riding with my parents somewhere. My Master Universe figures have wound up in trees, under cars, in mud pits and everything else, but they were sturdy figures. You could just clean them off and they keep going. It was very hard to break them, so they were the perfect toy for a child of the 80s. I'll say that. All right, so my fandom runs with that. I remember the original cartoon very vividly. I still have the box set that my wife bought me before we even got married. She knew I was a fan, and she bought me the box set of the original series on DVD, and I always appreciated that gift. I still have it in my DVD collection on my back wall, actually behind me, when I do live streams. I also was a fan of the movies. I remember when that movie came out, my sister took me to go see it. She used to watch He-Man and the Masters of the Universe with me when I was just watching the cartoon. So when she was a teenager and got her driver's license, I remember her driving me to the movies to see the actual movie. some disappointing things in the movie, but overall I recall having a good time watching it. I know it's cheesy for the 80s, but I still enjoyed it, and I remember reenacting the movie with my friends after seeing it in theaters. So going overall with that, and I, as a young man in college, I enjoyed the new series that came on Cartoon Network in the 2000s as well. So that's my overall fandom. And being a fan of Masters of the Universe, I did look into the history of it and realized just how much went into the creation of Masters of the Universe. There's a great documentary about it called The Power of Grayskull that's on Netflix still, I think. But there's also a section about the toys on the Toys That Made Us documentary series, if you go look that up on Netflix as well. Okay, so I'll refer you to those two things, and I think they will give you a great overview of the creation of Masters of the Universe. But I will just say that for the psychology of it, there's a lot of deep psychology in the creation of it, and if you watch the original cartoon, you'll see that even at the end of each episode, they would give little lessons on morality that they were trying to impart to the children out there, especially to the young boys. Boys and girls watch the show, by the way. So for the nonsense that they've been putting out there recently saying that, you know, this wasn't a show for girls, little girls watch this show as well. That's why they went ahead and created She-Ra, to give them something even more to watch later on. But, you know, young boys were definitely the target audience for this show. And they delve deep into the psychology of young boys as far as what young boys want out of this show. One of the main things that you remember He-Man saying when he transformed into He-Man is, "I have the power." They did that very specifically because they wanted to empower young boys. That's something that young boys, especially at that age, you know, a lot of young boys, the age range was from like, you know, 5, 6, 7 years old. So you were always being told what to do by your parents. So this was almost like a statement of independence for young boys when they heard that. It delved into their psychology. That's why a lot of young boys loved this cartoon. So it was all about empowering those young males and giving them something to aspire to, giving them something to believe in. So that's what it was all about when they created that cartoon. That, like I said, there's a lot of deep psychology in that. So that being said, this new show does kind of trample on that. I'm going to get to that towards the end of this review, but let me just say for Masters of the Universe Revelations, I will just say, as far as the quality of the show, from an artist and animation standpoint, it's a great, well done show. From the technical standpoints, character designs are pretty good. Once again, I had to give a shout out to Eddie Nunez. He's one of the guys that did the character designs for Masters of the Universe. Like I said, I remember years ago when he announced that he would be doing something like this. He didn't want to announce the project just yet, and then when he finally was able to say that he's working on a new Masters of the Universe show, we were all happy for him as a fellow peer doing art and animation. A lot of his peers are very happy for him because he is a very talented artist and he deserves it. So shout out to him, and also to a lot of the animators that work at the studio that helped to produce this. They did a great job. So from a technical standpoint, I think the show is very well done. Now I'm going to get to the story. The story is another story, I should say. The plot of this is something a little bit different that I don't think classic fans will like. And the overall review that I can give it is what my wife said about it when she saw me watching it during the morning. I told you I'd go watch it probably earlier in the morning when I was folding clothes, and that's exactly what I did. I turned on Netflix while I was folding up some clothes for myself and my daughter, and I just watched it. My wife came down, I was about midway through. The episodes are short. There's 5 like 20-30 minute episodes, so it's a short series. It's easy to get through as far as like speed wise. The episodes aren't long. That's why I watched it all. I was only going to watch the first episode, but I was like, you know, I have time, why not just sit and watch the rest of it while I'm sitting here folding clothes, right? So I watched all 5 episodes just so I can get a good grasp of what I'm talking about, so you know I'm not talking out my backside, alright? And I just didn't read a plot synopsis, I actually watched every episode. But my wife's assertion of what I was watching is exactly the review that it should have. And that was, I told her that I'm watching the new Masters of the Universe show, and she's like, oh, this doesn't seem like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And I said, yeah, they killed He-Man in the first episode. He's like, oh, so they just want people like you and other people who are fans to watch it, and then they just switched it to something different. That was her review of the show. Just from the few minutes she saw me watching it. I was on episode 3 by that time, and she had saw me watching it, and I was like, oh, this is not what you thought it was going to be, right? So that's the basic overall view of the show. And from someone who is familiar with the show but was not a fan, that's basically what she got from it. And she's exactly right. That's exactly what you're going to get from this new version of Masters of the Universe. There's really nothing really to hold you there for if you're a classic fan of this series, the toys, the mythology, or whatever. You know, there's a few things here and there that they grab from some of the mythology, but overall, to me, it's just not that great of a show. Okay, and you know, this is not even from speaking from someone who is, you know, anti-SJW, anti-wokeness or whatever. I know there's a lot of people like that on social media these days. They make their bread and butter talking about this sort of thing all the time, and I've seen the usual cast of characters on there doing so. That's not what there is that, but this is from just speaking just as a fan of the property. I'm not a fan of this new version of it. Okay, I know there's some people who disagree with me, and that's fine. We can just agree to disagree. I noticed that some of those people who like this show in my peer group are trying to get into Hollywood, so I guess that they have to conform to liking this sort of direction for classic properties, or else they can't get a job, you know, in this industry. So that's just basically my assertion of what I see. So like I said, I just didn't like it. The basic overall plot, it starts out almost like a typical He-Man episode, right? Skeletor is about to take over the magic within Castle Grayskull. He-Man shows up to stop him, and Skeletor crushes some magic orb inside the Castle Grayskull that's about to explode. The only way it can be stopped is for He-Man to try to absorb that power with his sword, and basically it causes He-Man to get destroyed. Him and Prince Adam get destroyed when he does that, and the only thing left are the heroes, and well, both He-Man, Prince Adam, and Skeletor die in that moment, and the rest of the people there are just kind of left there and sad that, you know, Prince Adam and Skeletor are gone. Like, the bad guys are upset Skeletor is gone, especially Evil Lyn. And, you know, of course, they get back to the royal palace, and that's when both Teela and the king, he finds out that his son was actually He-Man. And of course, the king gets upset, and he banishes Man-at-Arms for keeping this secret from him. Teela gets all emotional that Prince Adam would keep this secret from her, and her father would keep this secret from her, so she doesn't want to be a member of the Royal Guard anymore either. And, you know, of course, the next episode cuts to years later. All the magic is leaving Eternia, and so on and so forth. So that's the basic plot, and they're trying to get the magic back, and they have to try to find the two halves of this sword to bring back the magic to Eternia. So that's your basic overall plot of what's going on here. And like I said, it was just kind of lame all the way through, even from what it was described as, like a post-apocalyptic version of Masters of the Universe. Even in doing that, it failed in that regard. I didn't see it that way. It wasn't as interesting as you would think that concept would be. Okay, and it just felt very weak and not anything interesting. Like, while I was folding clothes, I picked up my sketchbook after I was done folding clothes, and I was watching like the last few episodes. I wound up doing more sketching and preparing some items for my Patreon page rather than watching the rest of this. You know, I watched it, but I wasn't you know, as into it as I should have been. You know what I mean? Like usually when I watch animation, I like to sit there and watch it because it's a visual feast for the eyes. But even this, the story just wasn't holding me there. I got the basic gist of everything that happened in every episode, but other than that, it was just kind of silly to watch. So as far as the criticisms that this show has been given, I'll go over some of them. The big one that He-Man is just a backdrop for the rest of these characters, especially for Teela. Teela is the main character. That's true. That criticism is absolutely 100% right. That's basically what happened. He-Man and Prince Adam disappear, and it's Teela's show for the most part. Like I said way back a year ago when I heard the rumors about this show, I was calling it Teela Man. That's basically what it's become, because she's the hero of this show. And she has a little black female friend there with her, who's like an engineer or whatever, right? Now, there's a rumor that they were trying to insinuate that these two might be lovers. I didn't really see that. The only thing I saw as far as that goes was they made Teela like more butch than she's ever been in this new series. Like they made her very manly. And, you know, I don't think there's a reason to do that. Teela's always been extremely feminine. If you look at the original design and what she had become, you know, even in the later comic book series, she's always been very feminine. Like I said, the original Masters of the Universe harkens back to that old sword and sorcery mindset. Okay, she wasn't a secondary character though. She was always a fighter. And even later on in those comics, she becomes the sorceress. So there was always an importance to her character there. But in this show, like I said, they just make her very butch, very manly. She even does some of the moves that show He-Man doing, like how she swings her partner around to like kick the bad guys, and she saves her partner, like, you know, the typical male hero would save his female second or whatever, or love interest. So in that regard, I can see how people would think that these two are lesbians. But if they were lovers, Teela's the one that wants to be in that type of relationship. The black girl doesn't seem like she's interested in that. She just wants to go on an adventure, and she wants to learn about the history of Eternia because she's a lot younger. It's almost I don't know what it's called with women, because I know with the older male and young male it's called pederasty, but I don't know if that's what it's called with women. I think it's called something else. I don't know what the term is for that, or pederasty. You have to let me know in the comment section about that. But that's what I would say as far as that goes. I know a lot of people are making a big deal about that. Like I said, I don't really see it as much. But they have made Teela very manly. Okay, Teela Man is all the way what she is. What was one of the other criticisms I saw? That the women there, all they do is complain about the men. That's pretty much it too. There's like several scenes where both Teela and Evil Lynn are talking, and they're complaining about the men in their lives, or the men that lied to them or left them hanging or whatever. It's kind of ridiculous. And it goes against the ideals of writing a female character. When you have a female character there, she's not supposed to be just sitting there talking about a man the whole time. That counteracts the whole idea of having a female character. But they wind up doing that a lot, and that just shows a lack of understanding as far as writing those female characters, by the way. So like they almost had like a bitter broad circle going on for a little while, complaining about either Skeletor or He-Man or being lied to or whatever, right? So that's a valid criticism as well, and it's kind of silly to even have that in an adventure cartoon. Let's see. But overall, I mean, as far as the critics go, I told you before in the other video, I don't take them too seriously. They go overboard, and a lot of it's to get views. And like I saw one guy's review that was actually inaccurate. Like he was complaining about certain things that happened in the first episode that never actually happened. So it's like, that's what I mean. Like they go over the top for their audience. And I understand you want to keep an audience on social media. It's hard to get one to begin with. And once you get one, you kind of have to stick to doing certain things. That's why I don't want to be one of those complaining about pop culture channels on YouTube. I'd rather just concentrate on my own concepts and drawings and whatnot, rather than just whining about what I'm not seeing in the mainstream. But they do have some valid criticisms as well. The people that made this show, I don't know who they were making this for. It definitely was not for the old audience, and I think it was very mean-spirited, and it was very disrespectful to those fans to advertise this show as a continuation of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe and a worthy sequel of that, and then kill off or just get rid of the main character or diminish him in a way and make him seem like he's not important. That's basically what they've done, even with the last episode where Prince Adam comes back and then they just kill him anyway. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen. It's supposed to be a 2-part series, and I don't know what's going to happen in the second part, but just from this, people are going to lose interest and probably not even want to watch the second part. If they really wanted to keep interest, they should have released the whole thing at one time rather than 2 halves. Because at this point, this first half is like, if you're a classic fan of Masters of the Universe, you don't want to watch the rest of it. And I might do a review whenever the second part comes out, just so I can confirm whatever's going on. But it just doesn't seem like anything that a Masters of the Universe fan would actually want to watch, just my humble opinion. So, on one side, some of the critics are going overboard and they are putting out a lot of nonsense, but they do have some very valid criticisms as well. And my overall feeling of the show is that it disrespects the main theme and the virtues that the original series was trying to impart, especially to young boys. When the original series was completely based on uplifting the spirits and the ideals and empowering young men, and then you really trample on that, that is not a worthy sequel of something called He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Like I said before in my last video about this subject, it's called He-Man for a reason. Alright, that's like the manliest name you can come up with, and to trample on that and make it seem like the man is not important, it's all about the females. They mostly had just female lead characters and a robot and Beastman and Orko, and most of the men were not even a factor, most are not even present. That's what I'm saying. You can't do that. Like I said, you already have She-Ra, and you've done things to that have kind of warped the concept of that. Why not just stick with that? Why would you take a property called He-Man that was made to empower young males, and then take that and then denigrate them in that regard as well? You know what I mean? It's like, is there any safe haven for young boys? You know, I understand young ladies might have felt things were out of balance before, but now, you know, taking the barometer and moving completely to the other side, that's out of balance as well. You can't do it that way. There has to be some sort of balance there, and the show is definitely out of balance. Even disrespectful in a way to the women. Like, you're not empowering women by making them manly. You're not empowering women by making them butch. Okay? A woman can be feminine and be powerful as well. You don't have to man them up and make them the man and the masculinity of the show to empower them. That's the wrong way to go, in fact. And I think they've done a disservice to both the males and female fans of the original Masters of the Universe series. So overall, I think this is probably the most fair review you're going to get, and the most realistic review you're going to hear, without hyperbole, without calling names. As far as Kevin Smith goes, who worked on the show and as the showrunner, the only thing I will say about him is he got himself a paycheck. That's probably why he did it. I do feel bad that he thought it was a good idea for him to keep getting online to discredit people when this is exactly what they predicted the show was going to be. He didn't have to do that, and I think he's ruined a lot of his credibility by doing so. So that's all I have to say about him in that regard. A lot of people that make criticisms of the early releases of the show were actually right. So he comes off looking ridiculous in that regard. Okay, so you guys can be the judge of it yourselves if you wanted to go watch it, but I just gave you my overall review of this show. I would not recommend it for anyone who's an actual fan of Masters of the Universe. There's so much they could have done. There's so much that has been done in both like the comic book series, like the DC comic book series that came out later, and the mythology that was set forth in the 2000 series. There's so much that could have been done with this, and you know, even the little fan service things they threw in there, they threw a lot of classic lines from both the live action movie and from the actual original animated series. Even that little bit of fan service did not do any good to uplift this series. So is it the super woke fantasy that a lot of the critics have made it? Not really. There are some valid criticisms that they make, but not really. But is it this great forward-moving fantasy series that Masters of the Universe fans will want to see? No, it's not. Okay, so it's not the devil, nor is it the godly great creation that people are making it out to be, either on the positive side of things. So that's my review for the show. Watch it at your own risk. You let me know how you feel about it in the comment section, how you feel about my review, or if you have watched it, what you think. Anyway, Crazyhouse signing out. Peace.